The marble lobby of Sterling Towers gleamed under morning lights as employees rushed to greet their boss. Edward Kane, CEO of Kane Global, strode in wearing his usual $1,000 suit, radiating arrogance. His sharp eyes caught sight of an older black janitor mopping near the entrance. A few drops of dirty water had splashed onto Edward's polished shoes. "Are you blind?" Edward barked, kicking the mop aside. "I pay you to keep this place clean, not to ruin my day." A few employees froze mid-step, afraid to intervene. The janitor simply straightened, meeting Edward's gaze with calm eyes. "Careful, sir," he said softly. "You never know who's watching." Edward let out a harsh laugh. "What are you going to do? Call your union? You're nothing here. I own this place." The janitor's lips curled into a quiet smile, the kind that made a few bystanders exchange confused glances. He leaned closer, voice low but firm. "You really think you own this place?" Edward sneered, brushing past him. "I don't think. I know." The janitor watched him disappear into the private elevator, then pulled out an old flip phone from his pocket, dialing a single number. "It's time," he whispered. Edward Kane stepped off the elevator onto the 42nd floor, his personal domain. Assistants scrambled to hand him schedules, reports, and coffee without cream, because heaven help the soul who brought him the wrong order. "Cancel the meeting with HR," he snapped. "Fire anyone you need to. I don't waste time on underperformers." He glanced at the lobby feed on his glass wall monitor, smirking as he replayed his own outburst toward the janitor. "Pathetic," Edward muttered. "If you're still mopping floors at 60, you deserve to be invisible." Across the lobby, the janitor, Henry Cole, quietly wrung out his mop. His movements were steady, almost deliberate, as if he'd been doing this job all his life, but his eyes missed nothing. When a young receptionist dropped a stack of files, Henry was the first to kneel, helping her gather them. "Careful," he said kindly. "Mr. Kane doesn't like mistakes." The girl smiled weakly. No one else had even noticed her trembling hands. By mid-morning, Edward was pacing in his corner office, barking orders over the phone. "The Dubai investors land tomorrow. I want that deal locked in by noon. Double security, and make sure the champagne is Dom Perignon, not whatever garbage accounting thinks we can afford." He hung up without a thank you, his reflection flashing back from the glass skyline. Tall, confident, untouchable. Down in the service hallway, Henry changed a flickering light bulb without being asked. As he worked, he overheard two executives whispering near the stairwell. Edward's planning to sign without board approval. He's moving company funds to a shell firm risky, even for him. Henry kept his head down, sweeping as if he hadn't heard a thing, but every word lodged in his mind. At lunch, Edward strutted to the cafeteria, lecturing a manager about cutting benefits to save pennies for shareholders. He didn't notice Henry quietly sliding a sandwich to the security guard's son who often waited in the lobby after school, his backpack torn at the straps. "Eat first," Henry told the boy with a warm smile. "Homework later." Minutes later, Edward stormed past, loudly complaining into his phone. "This building is full of useless people. The janitors, the guards, even half the executives. I could replace them all tomorrow. They should be grateful I don't bulldoze this place and build something better." Henry watched from the corner, face unreadable, as Edward's voice echoed off the marble. People shook their heads when Edward wasn't looking, but no one dared speak up. Henry simply continued polishing the brass railing, like a man who knew time was on his side. By early afternoon, Edward Kane's temper had hit full boil. He stepped out of his office just as Henry was polishing the brass elevator doors. A small smear of wax had landed on the marble floor. Edward stopped in his tracks, his voice cutting through the hallway like a whip. "Do you even know how to do your job?" Edward barked. "This is Kane Global, not some bus station bathroom. Clean it, or I'll have security throw you out today." A few assistants froze mid-step. One tried to intervene. "Mr. Kane, it's not." "Shut up, Claire," Edward snapped without even looking at her. "You're just as replaceable as he is." Henry calmly wiped the spot, nodding once. "It's taken care of, sir." "Not yet it isn't," Edward growled, towering over him. One more mistake, old man, and you'll be mopping streets. Understand? Yes, sir. Henry said evenly, his eyes steady. That faint, unreadable smile flickered again, just long enough for a few employees to exchange curious looks. When Edward finally stormed off toward the elevators, Henry slipped into the service stairwell and pulled out that old flip phone again. "It's getting worse," he murmured. "Be ready?" No names, no details, just a short call. He snapped it shut and went back to work as if nothing had happened. By late afternoon, the entire 42nd floor buzzed with whispers. "Did you hear him screaming at the janitor again?" One junior analyst muttered. "Guy's insane." Another shook his head. "Henry never talks back. I'd have walked out." Meanwhile, Edward Kane was in his office bragging to two bankers in expensive suits. "After tomorrow's deal," he said, swirling a glass of scotch, "I'll own half this block. I'm forcing the building's owner to sell. Old fool doesn't even know I'm the buyer. I'll tear this place down and put up something worthy of me." Henry, delivering fresh towels to the executive washroom, paused outside the cracked door, catching every word. He didn't flinch, just listen, then move on quietly. Later that evening, Edward took another call on speaker as he signed documents. "Lay off 50 people, he ordered coldly. "Do it Friday after I close this deal. And send the councilman his gift. I want those zoning permits pushed through." He chuckled darkly. "Money talks. Always." Henry, passing by with a cleaning cart, slowed just enough to glance at the glowing paperwork on Edward's desk. Company ledgers, property maps, lists of redundant employees. He memorized them with a single look, then rolled away silently before Edward noticed. When the office finally cleared out, Henry lingered in the lobby, making another brief phone call. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., he whispered. "Make sure everything's ready." A security guard passing by overheard him and frowned. "Everything okay, Henry?" Henry just smiled. Everything's about to be. As the night deepened, Edward walked past without even seeing him, boasting into his Bluetooth headset. "By this time tomorrow, I'll have the papers signed. This whole building, mine. And nobody, not even some janitor, can stop me." Henry watched him leave, mop in hand, eyes calm but sharp as glass. Viewers still didn't know what he was planning, only that he wasn't just cleaning floors. He was preparing for something. The next afternoon, Sterling Towers buzzed with tension. Edward Kane had transformed the top-floor boardroom into a showroom of power. Crystal glasses, imported flowers, investors from Dubai and New York waiting to hear his pitch. He straightened his tie in the glass wall, admiring his reflection. "Time to show them who really runs this city," he muttered. Down in the lobby, Henry Cole was polishing the brass railing near the elevators. As Edward swept through with his entourage, he spotted the janitor and sneered. "Still here? I thought I told security to clean up the trash." Some guests exchanged glances, uncomfortable. Henry simply nodded. "Good afternoon, Mr. Kane." "Don't Mr. Kamey," Edward barked. "Get out of sight before I have you thrown out. I don't want important people stepping over a mop." Henry stepped aside, but one of the uniformed security guards hesitated, looking almost apologetic. "Sir," the guard said to Henry, "do you need a hand with that cart?" Edward spun around, glaring. "Why are you talking to him? Watch the elevators. That's your job." Henry just smiled faintly and wheeled his cart away. As the doors closed behind Edward, another security guard gave Henry a respectful nod. "Afternoon, Mr. Cole." By the time Edward reached the 42nd floor, whispers had already spread among the staff. "Did you see the way security treated him?" An assistant whispered. "Like he's somebody." Inside the boardroom, Edward launched into his pitch, bragging about tearing down the building and replacing it with something worthy of Kane Global. The investors applauded politely, but their eyes kept flicking to the glass wall, where down below, a black limousine had just pulled up. A chauffeur in a sharp suit hurried out and opened the door for Henry. "What the hell?" Edward muttered when he spotted the scene on the monitor. "Why is a janitor getting a limo?" He forced a laugh for his guests. "Must be a mix-up. Some car service guy on the wrong block." Minutes later, Henry stepped into the lobby again. This time, two maintenance supervisors greeted him like an old friend, even straightened up as he passed. One whispered, "Everything ready upstairs, sir." "Sir?" Employees exchanged puzzled looks. Henry nodded once, calm as ever. Upstairs, Edward's presentation hit full stride when the glass door suddenly opened. A trio of men and women in dark suits entered. Not investors, but lawyers and company auditors. "Edward Kane," the lead attorney asked coolly. Edward frowned. "This is a private meeting. Who let you in here?" "Mr. Cole did," the attorney replied, glancing toward the door. Henry stepped in quietly, carrying nothing but a folded handkerchief in his pocket. His uniform looked the same, but the atmosphere shifted instantly. Investors straightened, curious. The head banker murmured, "Cole? As in Cole Properties?" Edward's face twitched, confused, but he forced another laugh. "This is ridiculous. He's a janitor." Henry's calm voice cut through the tension. "Actually, Mr. Kane, I'm the man who owns this building, and the one you've been bragging about buying behind his back." The room went still. Even Edward's closest aide stopped taking notes. The lead attorney placed a thick folder on the table. "We're here at Mr. Cole's request to review certain irregularities in your transactions." Edward scoffed, but beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. "This is absurd. You can't just..." "Can I?" Henry asked softly, his gaze steady. "You really should have listened when I told you yesterday. You never know who's watching." The boardroom froze. Edward Kane's smile faltered as Henry Cole walked in, flanked by attorneys and two senior investors. The janitor's uniform looked almost out of place in the sea of tailored suits, but no one was laughing now. "Stop wasting everyone's time," Edward snapped, trying to recover his swagger. "Somebody get security to throw this man out." No one moved. The head of security, standing near the door, glanced at Henry and gave a respectful nod, waiting for his instruction, not Edward's. Henry stepped forward, laying a single sheet of paper on the glossy conference table. "This is the deed to Sterling Towers," he said calmly. "Signed over to Cole Properties 5 years ago. Every square foot of this building, including your corner office, is mine." Gasps rippled through the room. One investor whispered to another, "Cole Properties? They own half the downtown district." Edward forced a laugh, but it came out strained. "Cute trick. You think a piece of paper." Henry's lawyer slid forward another folder, this one thick with contracts, payment records, and correspondence. "Here's the lease agreement, Mr. Kane. You've been paying rent to our holding company every month, or rather, underpaying through a fraudulent sublease you arranged with your shell firm." Edward's face drained of color. That's not true." The banker from Dubai cleared his throat. "We verified these documents this morning. Perhaps you should explain why you hid these payments from your own board." Henry didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You lied to your investors. You bribed a councilman for permits. And you planned to lay off 50 employees to cover your tracks. I hurt myself." He turned to the stunned assistants and staff lining the wall. "How many of you were told your jobs were safe?" Hands dropped, eyes lowered. The room was silent. Edward slammed his fist on the table. "This is my company." "No," Henry replied gently. "It's a company that rents my building. And now, thanks to your arrogance, your investors are walking away." The lead banker closed his briefcase. "Mr. Kane, our firm doesn't do business with liars. Consider our deal canceled." Another investor stood up. "The board will hear about this tonight. Don't bother coming in tomorrow." Edward looked around, desperate, but no one met his eyes. Even his own assistant stepped back, disgusted. Henry's voice carried the final blow, soft but unshakable. "I started as a janitor here years ago, just to see how people really treat those they think are beneath them. Some were kind, some were cruel. You showed me everything I needed to know." Security moved toward Edward, but this time at Henry's quiet nod. "Escort him out, please," Henry said. "He won't be returning." Edward's protests echoed down the marble hallway as the doors closed behind him. In the boardroom, silence lingered, broken only by the sound of investors applauding Henry Cole. The boardroom emptied, whispers of admiration following Henry Cole instead of Edward Kane. As security escorted the disgraced CEO through the lobby, employees who once feared him now looked away in silence. Henry walked over to Claire, the assistant who had tried to defend him earlier. "Thank you," he said warmly. "You treated me with respect when you didn't have to. People like you are the reason I still believe in this place." She blinked, stunned. You really own all this?" Henry smiled. "I wanted to see how people behaved when they thought no one important was watching. Some failed that test. You didn't." Before leaving, he glanced back at the staff who had gathered, hope flickering in their eyes. "Remember this," he said gently. "True power isn't about money. It's about respect." He stepped into his waiting car as the doors closed. For more stories where arrogance meets justice, don't forget to subscribe.